Okay, so we're going to do this. And I'm just going to have some sort of faith that this is going to work out. Anyway, hi, it's your local Warlock Disaster. And I'm going to read to you from Van Richten's Monster Hunter Compendium. Why did I go Russian with that? That was not the intent. This is not... this is... That is much more closer to what I was intending to get to, but I do not feel that it is exactly right. Fuck. I'm wandering again on accents, and I'm just gonna stop. Because it doesn't work if I go with like the ones I default to when I practice. Right here with Van Richten's Monster Hunter Compendium. It's not exactly the right atmosphere for the voice that I'm going for. But hi. Yeah, no, I'm including that minute because I'm ridiculous. That is a problem that is going to be dealt with. The Van Richten's Monster Hunter's Compendium, the Chapter 1 of the Guide to the Vampire. Chapter 1, the background of vampirism. That is not going to be a tone that I continue. The background of vampirism. In almost every world, tales of vampirism exist to strike fear into both small children and grown adults. Sensible people generally consider these tales folklore, and indeed it seems that the existence of the living dead is both implausible and impossible. Why does that need to be implausible and impossible, Van Richten? Like, if it's impossible, then yeah, no, I guess it's pretty fucking implausible. You can go with one, you don't need to be both. Why then do cultures so separated by distance and time Why then do cultures so separated by distance and time that they have not even the smallest commonality share nearly identical tales of supernatural creatures that drink the blood of the living? I'm like 3 sentences into this, and I already kind of want to snark at it a little bit, but moving on. I've recorded tales of a place called Kryn, and a race of sea elves who claim that if one of their race is buried on land, it will rise from the dead to seek vengeance on its brothers by drinking their blood. A native of another world, called Toril, tells a tale of a great undead beast that used to be a man. The beast roams the plains and searches for lone people to attack. The tale relates that it eats the internal organs of its prey. From still another place, called Oearth, a man has told me of a family curse that causes the firstborn male in every 12th generation to rise after death to drink the blood of the family unless the body is burned at burial. These 3 worlds, so far from the land of mists that I know them only by story and rumor, share many tales of once living men walking the land and slaying the living. Can this be coincidence? Rather, it would indicate that these tales can only be the truth, speaking as they do of undead lords who tread upon the domain of the living. I'm going to continue in a second, but now in my brain I just am crossing this over with what was that? What was the show that Jonathan Frakes did, where like, I don't know, Mr. is the Unknown or something. It was one of those shows, and now I'm just imagining Jonathan Frakes giving this intro. The question of origins. How did vampirism begin? If new vampires are spawned by other vampires, as virtually all tales would have us believe, how then was the first vampire created? I mean, first of all, Rudolph, is his name? Is it Rudolph Van Richten? I can't remember his name. Rudolph. Maybe? Nope, wait, hold on. Rudolph Van Richten. Rudy, okay. So you've told me 3 lands. 3 lands that have tales of vampirism. One where there's no real explanation of in Abertoril of where this great undead beast came from. But the other 2 tell you specifically of where these vampires come from, and neither of them are spawned by another vampire. So read your own fucking book, Rudolph. Sorry. These questions have plagued sages as long as the undead monsters themselves have plagued mankind. perhaps the answer lies in Barovia. The gift, or curse, of immortality was not thrust upon Strahd von Zarovich, Lord of Barovia, by another vampire. Rather, he stole it from the lips of death. I quote the following text from the diary of the bard Grigory Koryan, who supposedly was captured by Strahd only to be released sometime later with the complete story of the creature. I do not know why Strahd allowed Grigory to leave with this vital information. Perhaps a vampire felt a need to have his story told after years of exile and secrecy. Also because he's a dramatic bitch who just likes to tell everybody things. September 8th, 4:53. Barovia is a stranger place now, although I cannot exactly put my finger on any changes. There's a physical nature to this change. Colors are not as vibrant, sounds not as immediate, but the major change is in the people, in the lifeblood of the land. As near as I can tell, the change began about 2 years ago. I can remember a day when I used to play my songs in the local taverns and people would dance and sing. Now they seem satisfied just to sit and drink and talk in hushed whispers. There's a dampness over their souls, like a dreary autumn day. How like a fucking bard. Wow, people don't want to, listen and celebrate me. Listen to my music and tell me how awesome I am. Must be something cursing the land. November 2nd, 4:53. I am on to something. It seems that my feelings about the people of Barovia have not simply been my imagination. There is a source, a spiritual suppression, if you will, behind the changes. I have no means of verifying this, no magical detection devices that will lead me to it. I have only my heart and my love for the land and its people. March 29th, 4:54. Grigory? Barovia is not that big a place. I feel like you can walk across it in 2 days. It took you 5 fucking months. For nearly 5 months I have searched for the answer to the puzzle. Barovia is in danger and no one else seems aware of it. I would swear to it. But it is not a danger to which people respond, not a physical enemy at the gates of a city or the border of a land. The enemy is within the hearts and minds of the Barovian people. Just last week, I purchased some supplies from the market. The merchant packaged the items, handed them to me, and turned away before I could pay him. It was as if he cared not about being paid. Very odd, almost self-destructive behavior pervades Barovia. Wow. I'm gonna fuck that up repeatedly, and I apologize for that. Orella, if Christoph ever gets to read this book, he is going to do a dramatic reading of this. And there's going to be this part. Very odd, almost self-destructive behavior pervades Barovia. And he's going to look at Priyana. And there's just going to be a second there, and then he's going to go back to reading. I have many suspicions. Many would call them paranoid, would say that my mind has become unbalanced. On certain days, when the sun warms the land and the birds sing in the trees, I myself doubt my certitude, but then I find my eyes drawn up to the castle on the hill. Yeah, remember when I said Barovia is not that big a land? It's 2 days across by, on foot at most? It took you 5 months to notice the big fucking castle up there, Grigory. Wisdom was your dump stat, I think. Castle Ravenloft. What mysteries do its walls hold within them? Walls that are tall and unyielding like the secrets of an old man's heart. Strahd von Zarovich has ruled Barovia for over a century and has not been seen in half that amount of time. Each day the knowledge comes upon me with more certainty. I must learn more about this dark enigma of a man. That's when Lorana gets a look. And I fear I must do the unthinkable. Go to the castle itself and investigate its enigma firsthand. April 8th, 4:54. Fear, cold and dripping, like blood from a hanging corpse. You've been in Barovia too long. Has been my constant companion for several weeks. The closer I get to that accursed Castle Ravenloft, the stronger I feel the grip of terror's icy hand. It's not that big, How is it taking you weeks to get there, man? There can be no doubt now as to the source of Barovia's plight. April 10th, 4:54. I need search no longer. The object of my quest has not only appeared to me, but sequestered me away within his foul domicile. Okay, like he is giving you clearly have enough. You have supplies to write and like paper and stuff, and it's a little rude. It's a little rude to talk about your host like this. Late last night, he appeared in my room like some silent apparition from the grave. Ordering me to take up my quills, ink, and parchment, he seized me and leaped out my window to his waiting coach. This confirmed my suspicion that Strahd von Zodovich is other than a natural man. You see, for my window is 4 stories from the ground. The fact that he ruled... Okay, alright, no, okay, I'm sorry. I was gonna give Grigori crap over the fact that Strahd has been ruling for a century, but he could be a half-elf. It's cool. Never mind. That one's on me, Grigori. We're good. April 15th, 4:54. For 5 days and nights. You know why Strahd probably showed up and like grabbed you from your inn and like dragged you out to his very fancy carriage. It's a fancy carriage. You should say thanks. Because it was taking you fucking weeks to get to his castle. It's like 4 miles away from anything. Okay, it's like 10 miles away from things. It's maybe upwards of like 30. Come on, Grigori. You were stalling. You were getting sucked into side quests. And you fucking know it. Bards, you can't trust him. April 15th, 4:54. For 5 days and nights, I have literally been Strahd's prisoner in Castle Ravenloft. Strange how the castle seems so warm and cozy inside. Not the lurking horror its external visage portrays. Wow, sounds like a real imprisonment. I've discovered many things about Strahd and may scribe them later in a tome dedicated to such an endeavor. I feel, however, that this task will never be accomplished. For how can this man allow me to live when I know such dark secrets about him? He has shared himself, all his intimate secrets, with me as if I were his dearest friend. Yeah, there's just gonna be just a general look around the room there. Not a man. Strahd walks the land as a vampire. A once living creature that now feeds on the blood of the living. Although there are endless details about his actions, mannerisms, and appearance that I wish to portray in this journal, I will pen only one aspect of him, his transformation from living to undead. And I will do so immediately, lest I forget the smallest detail. It is a great testament to the sleepy, lethargic nature of Barovia that no one has questioned the rule of Strahd von Zodovich. Yet strong words from the guy who took like a month and a half to get halfway across a country that you can like walk across in like an afternoon. Don't start talking shit about sleepy, lethargic natures. He rarely, if ever, shows himself publicly. Hence, it has been puzzling that he's ruled Barovia unchallenged for more than a century. I know now the answer to this riddle, but I am no more comforted. In life, Strahd was tossed upon a sea of emotion and jealousy. His greatest jealousy was toward his brother, Sergei, who was young and handsome. I'm just going to interrupt this until we find things out in-game. Our characters don't know. So, keep that in mind, players. To add to this, Sergei had the love of a beautiful girl named Tatiana. Envy swept over Strahd like a breaking sea, for he, too, loved Tatiana. As time passed, these natural emotions twisted into grotesque forms. His love became an overwhelming need to possess the object of that love, and envy grew into spite, and eventually into hatred. At first, Strahd merely intended to frustrate Sergei's plans to marry Tatiana, but then Strahd's mind, apparently already twisted, broke, and he decided that only the death of his younger brother would give him what he wanted: sole possession of Tatiana. He planned this assassination, this fratricide, in private, and so he thought, in silence. But in his overwrought state, Strahd was given to speaking aloud as he strode his chambers alone. An officer of the guard who was a personal friend of Sergei walked the battlements just beyond Strahd's window and overheard the elder von Zarovich's plans. Stricken with horror, he knew he had to warn Sergei at once. He turned to leave his post at the battlements, but as he did, the scabbard of his sword struck the stonework. Strahd heard the faint sound. Immediately he snatched up his own weapon and hurled himself out the window onto the battlement. So, just so we know, being an overdramatic bastard is not something that came with vampirism to Strahd. No, he heard a noise outside and his first response was, "My sword, I must jump out the window." With a curse, he aimed a whistling cut at the guard's head. That officer was a veteran swordsman, however, and parried the blow. Although he had no desire to harm Strahd, his master, the officer was now forced to defend himself. What are you... Oh, my phone's giving me a thing. Okay, we're done. Good. By Strahd's account, the battle was fierce and will make for a great song, should I live to compose it. Both men were excellent swordsmen, Strahd from his years as a general and the officer from his constant training. Yet Strahd's madness gave him the edge, and he finally struck down the officer. But not before he himself had taken a wound that would have slain a lesser man instantly. So they fought, got some good hits in. Strahd was down a lot of hit points, and if he'd been lower level, would have been over. But he got the shot in. Strahd von Zarovich was as good as dead. In his mind, he knew that, but his hatred and rage would not allow his failing body peace. As the lifeblood poured from his body, Strahd made a pact with death. He reached over, grabbed the dead guardsman, and drank the blood of the corpse. Strahd would now live free from death forever, cheating that dark and shadowy figure. But the pact required another act to be complete. He would have to kill his brother Sergei on his wedding day to finally seal the wicked contract. I mean, you gotta be really careful when you make contracts, when you're on the verge of dying. Am I right? Strahd hid the guard's body awaiting Sergei's wedding day. So, like, this guy just disappeared. I mean, also, when you're... Never mind. So many questions, but Strahd, you're probably making this as difficult as possible. As the time passed, Strahd found his charade more and more difficult to maintain. The daylight hours were becoming increasingly uncomfortable, and the naked rays of the sun physically painful to his eyes and skin. He also found it difficult to eat food, which hardly satisfied his hunger. The transformation to whatever creature death had in mind for him was beginning. On the day of the wedding, Strahd sought out Sergei and instigated a fight, intending in this way to give himself some justification for killing the young man. Strahd expected his young and fit brother to be a challenge to defeat, but quickly found that his physical strength had increased far beyond its previous limit. With but a single cruel blow, Strahd felled his brother, and his pact with death was complete. Strahd von Zarovich had become a vampire. No doubt perceptive readers will have noticed the same gaps in this narrative that I spotted when it first came to my attention. For instance, how exactly did Strahd von Zarovich strike a pact with death? As death is merely a cessation of life, what possible manifestation of this natural condition could propose and accept such a pact? I don't know, Rudy. Maybe there's like gods of death and shit? Just a thought. It is questions such as these that force me to doubt the complete veracity of Grigori's tale. Perhaps this famous bard could not resist the urge to embellish upon the tale told to him by von Zarovich, although the diary entry shows little of the internal consistency and stylistic brilliance characteristic of tales known to have been created by Grigory Kolyan. More likely, it is the possibility that von Zarovich lied to the bard for his own reasons. This might explain Kolyan's eventual escape and release. The vampire wished to use him to spread misinformation. Or, in the perhaps most likely interpretation, von Zarovich lied. But not only to Kolyan. Aging humans often color and alter their memories of events that were less than flattering to them. In humans, this tendency appears in just a few years. How great may the tendency to embellish be in a creature that has lived for centuries and can expect to live forever? This interpretation raises a major question. How much trust can we put in anything spoken by Strahd von Zarovich, or by any of his unholy kind? The necrology of vampires. This part pretty much gets addressed to Lorana because it's probably foreplay. It should come as no surprise that a vampire's metabolism is not like that of a mortal. In fact, strictly speaking, a vampire has no metabolism whatsoever. Although all of the biological systems present in a living mortal are also present in a vampire, most of these systems are changed in function. For example, most vampires do not need to breathe and can function equally well in an airless crypt or in the vacuum of a void. Provided that immersion in water is not deadly to them, they can function unimpaired on the ocean floor. Vampires do retain the use of their lungs, but only for speech. Because vampires have no metabolism in the normal sense, metabolic toxins and poisons, ingested, inhaled, and insinuative, have absolutely no effect on the creatures. This is not to say that there are not certain substances which, when insinuated into the body of a vampire, cause it serious and even lethal damage. These substances, although they may seem to function like poisons, are more like allergens and are usually specific to individual creatures. For example, I myself, blah blah blah, we're all proud of you, Rudy. I myself have dispatched a vampire that was sensitive to holly, and I have heard that the ash of a burned alderwood is lethal to another certain vampire. Some examples of other vampiric allergens are yew leaves, rose petals, salt, rice, silver, mistletoe, and lilies. The digestive tract of a vampire is greatly modified from that of a living mortal. The stomach is frequently reduced in size, often to the size of a man's clenched fist, simply because no vampire needs to ingest large volumes of solid food. There is wide variation among vampires with regard to the ability to eat solid food. Some vampires are unable to eat normal food at all, and any attempt to do so results in immediate regurgitation. Others can eat solid food to no ill effects, although they extract no nourishment from the bodies, and pass the material through their bodies over a course of hours, as mortals do. In the middle ground, there are some vampires that can eat solid food, but must regurgitate it within a period ranging from minutes to hours. This issue may seem incidental, but obviously has significant effect on the vampire's behavior, should the creature try to masquerade as a living creature. Whoa, Rudolph. Vampires and masquerades are a different game. Do not get sued. The circulatory system of a vampire is little changed. The heart still pumps blood through the vessels of the monster's body. There are some differences, however. Because vampires have no need to extract oxygen from the air, their blood absorbs nothing from the lungs. This renders them completely immune to noxious gases that must be breathed to be effective. A vampire might inhale the gas, that is, draw it into its lungs, but the toxic chemicals in the gas would not cross from the lungs to the blood. The blood of a vampire is also somewhat different from the blood of a mortal. When viewed normally, it has the same rich red color as a mortal's blood. When it is viewed by transmitted light, such as when a vial of vampire blood is held up to a light source, it has a distinctive golden color. Blood drawn from an undestroyed vampire can manifest in a wide variety of powers. In some cases, the blood is highly caustic, causing severe acid-like damage to anyone who touches it. In other cases, the blood bursts explosively into flames when exposed to sunlight. In still other cases, anyone who touches so much as one drop of blood with bare skin instantly falls under the mental sway of the vampire. It is impossible to predict beforehand what effects the blood of a particular vampire might have, if any. There is one common factor. At the instant a vampire is destroyed, any samples of his blood immediately become inert, and frequently become rancid within seconds. The sensory organs of vampires become much more sensitive than those of their living analogues. If they did not already possess the power of life, vampires gain the ability to see in total darkness, typically with a range of some 90 feet. That's very specific. It doesn't sound like a game rule at all. Their hearing also becomes much more acute, as does their sense of touch and smell. A vampire is exceedingly difficult, if not impossible, to surprise. Because a vampire does not require oxygen, and, as is usually the case, must feed only once per day, where does it draw the energy required for the prodigious feats of which the creature is capable? Many sages disagree, but my own belief is that the creature has an innate link to what sages refer to as the negative material plane. There's the positive material plane, there's the negative material plane, and then there's the depending on who you ask, it's either the half full or the half empty material plane. Optimists, pessimists disagree. Whatever the reason, vampires are much more resilient and robust than living creatures. They seem generally immune to exhaustion and to the debilitating effects of pain and exposure, and seem able to shrug off the negative consequences of many magical effects. They're totally immune to the effects of sleep, charm, and hold spells, and to other magical and psionic effects which mimic those spells. They're also totally immune to any magical effect that specifically causes paralysis. It's important to stress the word specifically. While a vampire would be immune to the paralyzing touch of a ghoul or the dwemer of a wand of paralyzation, it could be affected by a potent enchantment such as alter reality or wish that simulated the effect. Any mage capable of casting such powerful magic would almost certainly choose an effect more significant than paralyzation, of course. Like many other types of undead creatures, vampires sustain little damage from any effect based on cold or electricity, whether caused by spell, item, breath weapon, or even the elements. Vampires are totally resistant to several beneficial spells as well. The creatures are completely immune to the effects of a priestly curative or healing magic, such as cure light wounds, heal, etc. Because the failure of such spells might well give away the monster's true nature, a vampire masquerading as a mortal will often go to great lengths to avoid exposure to such magic. I mean, that's fair. I mean, who doesn't want to avoid having to worry about having healing spells? Oh my god, I've been doing this for almost half an hour. I'm just going to do just the rest of the page. We're good. A vampire's hair will never turn gray, nor will the creature show any other physical signs of aging unless it already had before death. In general, as long as the creature is well fed and functions according to whatever other restrictions are relevant to its existence, it will never appear any different from the way it did on the day of its mortal death. This does not mean that the vampire will flaunt their unchanging appearance, because doing so will certainly attract too much unwanted attention. A vampire that chooses to live within or on the outskirts of the society of men will, in most cases, go to great lengths to masquerade as a normal human or demi-human, pretending to age and even to die to remove suspicion. This deception is discussed at length in Chapter 12, The Facade. Vampires of different racial stock. Most of this guide's discussions about typical vampires generally refer to the vampires that were demi-humans when alive. There are some differences between these once-human vampires and those that arise from different racial stock. Again, with the discussion of human vampires, the paragraphs refer to typical cases. A dwarven vampire, for instance, may exhibit specifically dwarven characteristics, may more closely resemble the human vampires, or may show attributes totally different from both. Perceptive readers will observe that a certain symbolism plays an integral role in most of these vampires. Their weaknesses and strengths are generally highly symbolic for the creature's nature while alive. For example, some dwarven vampires might be highly reactive to weapons made of mithril, especially if they coveted the metal in life. This kind of symbolic significance is a common feature with vampires of all races and natures. Compiler's notes. We have determined that, since Dr. Van Richten penned the passage above, that each demi-human race does indeed exhibit uncommon abilities for vampires. Further, many of these abilities seem consistent within a racial stock. In other words, many dwarven vampires, for example, possess similar powers. LWF. I don't know who that is. I don't know. It's probably... I don't know, there's probably somebody who put this together Laurie Weathermay Foxgrove. There's a prologue between from both her and her sister, Laurie and Jennifer Weathermay Foxgrove. So, in memoriam, Dr. Rudolf van Richten. Doesn't he look like he was a very, very interesting gentleman? He's very exciting. And that, I believe, is the end of where I'm going to be reading today. I've been doing this for almost nearly half an hour, so I'm going to stop and upload this. Have a good night, everyone.